is about what they didn't tell you about grad school if you're a single parent or a parent in general, but I can only speak from the single parent point of view. So as we know, grad school is exciting, and of course it is such a milestone and an achievement to get accepted, especially coming from your undergrad and applying around and, you know, not knowing if you're going to get in and where and all this and that. But there are things that they don't tell you, and I feel like it's important for you to know. Now, I just finished my first week of grad school. It's been like towards the end. I did orientation, so next week will be my first full week of grad school, so I'll come back to you with a kind of update on how that went. But these are things that I'm noticing they didn't tell you about grad school in general, more especially if you're a parent, better yet, a single parent. For those of you who don't know, I am in grad school for to become a clinical psychologist, so that answers like a lot of questions that I got on my last video. So that is what I am doing or trying to do at the moment. Now, things that you can prepare for, especially if you are in undergrad, is try to get your GPA as high as possible. And I say that because a lot of the scholarships that you can apply for are GPA based. And they don't tell you that obviously because you're not applying for grad school, so how would you know? But I'm telling you, try to get your GPA as high as possible. It'll kind of help you out in the future with finances and just affording college and all that stuff. Also, when it comes to applying, it's not as hard as you may think. Contrary to popular belief, you don't need to get your master's first. You can't apply straight into a doctorate program, PhD, PsyD, etc. without getting your master's first. Now, they may come back and tell you, we recommend you getting your master's because we noticed that you're weak in certain areas. However, I applied straight to the PhD, PsyD program and got straight in without having a master's, just coming from my undergrad. So in order to do that, just look for schools that have a PhD or PsyD that don't have terminal masters, and most of the time those programs will just take you straight to your doctorate, so you can lump everything. Kind of helps with finances, and you get your master's, if that makes sense, along the way, but you can't just get a terminal master's, if that makes sense. So we're going to get into the 5 things they don't tell you that I feel are like the biggest 5 things that you should know in grad school, being a parent or provider or a single parent. First thing they don't tell you is about finances. Now, I know it is common knowledge that grad school is expensive, yes, but you don't know how expensive. Now, for me, for my undergrad, I had my GI Bill, but that has since ran out, so I am trying to afford grad school on my own. So I do qualify for the military scholarship, which is 20%, and my GPA was over 3.5, so I do qualify for some scholarships. But on the back end, it still costs a couple grand per term. Now, when you are enrolling in grad school and you go over your financial plan, they give you a rough draft, they call it. So don't plan on paying that amount, which is what I did, which was under $1,000 per term. Don't plan on paying that amount, because by the time you come back and you're already in past the drop date, which we'll get into a little bit, you are looking at your account and it says you owe way more than a couple $100s. So make sure you save. Even if you're in your undergrad or you're just starting and you put $20 aside a pay period, save for these things, trust me. Another thing about finances is try to get like a side job, which is hard because they don't recommend you working over 15 hours, which is like, if you don't come from money, how was that even possible? I have started selling glitter lip gloss, which I know like it's shiny. I love it. I love lip gloss. I love glitter. So if you want to know more about that, you can write down below in the comments. I can kind of give you the link to it. But that is kind of like what I've started to do, and I'm also looking for other employment as well. But it's very hard to afford grad school when you're paying out of pocket, only working 15 hours a week. And also, the last thing I'll say about that is loans don't cover everything, especially if you have less than excellent credit. Even if you have fair credit, you may still be turned down for Grad Plus loans because there's certain criteria you must meet. So just know that just because loans are there, they won't cover everything, and you are capped out at certain amounts per degree you're trying to get. So your master's and your doctorates, they only give you a certain amount, and they divide that up amongst the years that you're going to school. Fourth thing that I'll cover, especially for the parents, is that you may put down you don't want evening and night classes, which leaves day, and there are plenty of day classes. But as a first year, you have no say-so over your schedule. They pretty much tell you what classes you're going to take. Now, I specifically said no evening classes because, as you know, I have a daughter. And daycare in my area, the latest you can pick your kid up is at 6:30. Well, my class is over at 6:30, and they do have a late policy per minute that you are late. So just know, start planning when you're going to grad school, having a backup, a caretaker who can pick your child up and or watch them when you're coming from class. Because, like in my instance, my class is over at a certain time, and that is when daycare closes. And there are very few daycares in my area that are open past 6:30 that aren't reserved for certain corporate jobs. So they aren't open to everyone, even though it is advertised. That brings us to the third thing I'll go over. Have a strong support system. Now for me, I moved back home so I can afford college, but that isn't enough for me because my mom also works, and I'm going to school, which is 2 hours away. My daughter goes to school here. So in the event of an emergency, somebody has to be readily available to go get her, and it's not me. And of course, as a new mom and a parent, I worry. So that makes me emotional, of course, when they call, and I just like get into a panic that the worst thing is going to happen. And also other people have work and they're on call. So that kind of gets you into like a rut of feeling like a burden, and you don't, you're doing it on your own, and you get frustrated and you want to quit. So these are the things that hopefully you can learn from me to have a strong support system, but have more than one person planned just in case the first person has something going on. The second thing I'll cover is books. Books in itself are expensive. For my first term, all of my books were a little over $400. Now that is a lot for someone who is not working and is supporting her child by herself and does not have, income coming in. So my best advice is to buy the books from the upperclassmen or get with someone in your class and say, okay, these are the classes we have. If I buy this half, you can buy this half, and we'll just swap back and forth. Or get with someone who's on the opposite schedule of you. That is a huge way to cut costs. And you all don't have to buy the same books, because although they look great on a bookshelf, most of the time 90% of those books you're not going to keep, and there's only going to be a few that you're going to keep for reference. So that's just my little tidbit. Of course, I have other ones that are a little bit on the ethical questioning side, but that's my best legal tip I can give you. If you want to know more, just obviously message me and I'll give you some other tips. So the last tip that I'll go over, which kind of like isn't a tip, it's more of like a warning, is that grad school, especially if it's a for-profit school, their job is to get you in the door. Their job is to entice you with, these are the programs, and we've interviewed you and you made it to this last step. It's an honor to get accepted, blah, blah, blah. They go over rough drafts of your finances. They give you all these classes, throw all this stuff at you, and before you know, you don't know when the drop date is or if you can afford to keep going. So their job is to get you in the door, put numbers in a seat so they can keep their funding, blah, blah, blah. My best tip for you is to know when your drop date is. Get with financial planning. Don't be that person that, don't want to seem like you can't afford it or you don't belong there, so you don't go seek out financial help. Get with finance. Ask, what does this cost? What is the bottom dollar that I owe? Do a hard look at your numbers and see if you can afford it, because you may be willing to go now, but finances may make you put your program or your education on the back burner until you save up a little bit more money. So my best advice is to get with finance, know the bottom dollar, plan ahead. If you have to take a pause, but don't let them rush you into staying in school and then you miss the drop date and now you owe this money and you're kind of like in a catch-22. Our last class that just started, they had about 3 to 4 people leave. They had about 3 to 4 people leave due to financial reasons, but they stayed past the drop date because they didn't know, and now they owe this money on top of having to find a job and support their family and all that stuff. So these are just the 5 tips that I can give you of what they don't tell you about grad school when you're starting. As a single parent, this is my POV. And next week will be my first full week of grad school, so I'll come back with kind of a follow-up. I'm kind of in the financial part of it where supporting my child and everything is kind of being like a little bit too much to afford grad school right now, which is why I have my side hustle of selling glitter lip glosses. But I'm getting with finance. I'm trying to work out some deals. If I can't, then it may take a back burner, sadly, and then I may have to pick it up at a later time, but at least you're not creating more debt for yourself. So thank you guys for tuning into this video. I know it's not makeup related, but these are just some of the things that I can impart on you that hopefully helps you, that I wish I would have known before I started grad school as a single parent. And on a more positive note, you thought I was done, I just want to say, yay, we've hit our 100th official subscriber. So that is a big milestone for me. I did do 2 giveaways of ColourPop foundation in the last giveaway. So so when we get to 150, I'll be doing another giveaway, probably of a palette, of a ColourPop palette. So make sure you share and tell your friends so they can be entered, and you can be entered in winning a ColourPop palette. When I hit 150, my subscriptions are now public, so you know when I hit that number. And just, yes, for our little community of people, and we reached 100 subscribers, so I'm like super excited. You guys have no idea. And just thank you guys for the subscription, even if you don't watch my videos and you gave me a thumbs up and you know, just subscribe to my channel. It just means a lot to me just to have your support, and just to think, I'll support this girl and give her something as free as a subscription. So I greatly appreciate it, and I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I love you guys, and just so amazing. Thank you.